5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for yet again another live stream. We have really enjoyed doing these live streams with you guys the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a great way for us to share a little bit about what's going on with our magazine. And, you know, we're both teachers at heart, and so we love just sharing lots of information that we hope that you find is useful and valuable. But we also love hearing what you have to say about things.
That's right. And my name is Anne-Marie. This is Gabe. We are hosts on the Studio Classroom Daily program. So if you do enjoy the teaching from these live streams, you can always go and check out that program. And our topic for today, as you have already seen, is don't be rude online. Another way we could say this is social media etiquette.
Yeah, etiquette is something we want to talk about in this live stream today. You could also use the word manners. Maybe you've heard that one a little more frequently, right? Manners, 要有礼貌, right? So that's the idea behind etiquette. There are different rules for etiquette in different areas of life. And sometimes when it comes to social media, it can be a little bit blurry, 有点不清楚到底那个礼貌在哪里, right? What can you do, what can't you do?
Right, and it's different than the kind of etiquette that we have in real life. So etiquette in general is the customary code of polite behavior in a society or among members of a particular profession or a group. So it's what most of society does in most cases.
Well, we had a question for you because we want to know what you think about this, right? How has social media changed our society? How has social media, 社群媒体有什么改变我们的社会? And when we say our society, I think it's safe to say we're talking globally, right? We're not just talking about here.
Because that's the thing about the internet, right? It bridges a lot of gaps between different cultures and different societies, different countries, different areas of the world. So you can answer this question however you want. How has social media, how do you think social media has made a difference in the way we live and interact with each other?
Well, one obvious way, since we asked the question, we should probably answer it as well. One obvious way, I think, is that it has made the world a much smaller place.
I think that's a positive thing.
Right? And, yeah, and it's like that old Disney song, it's a small world after all, right? Sometimes you meet somebody and you think, hey, you know that person too? Wow. And you might say, it's such a small world. 世界真的很小. Well, social media has made it even that much smaller.
You know, though, I was talking to one of my friends actually earlier today about this and how much pressure and anxiety we put on ourselves because we know everything that's happening in the world all the time now. And there used to be a time when you wouldn't have social media and it could take you a few days to hear the news or some things you may not even hear about. And that has put a lot of extra pressure on people, hasn't it?
That's right. You know, in the past, with other outlets, before social media platforms and the internet, there were gatekeepers, right? Much fewer companies who were in charge of, you know, basically saying, this is the news that we're going to share with this community or with the world. But now we can hear all sorts of news all over the place from all sorts of places as well. And something we're going to talk about today is even the idea of fake news, 假新闻.
That's right. But first, something a little more fun. The reason we got this idea to talk about social media etiquette is actually because of an article we had in this month's magazine, Instagrammable Cafes. This was a really fun article. I really enjoyed this because I love going to a cafe that is Instagrammable. Now,
because you love
to take photos
and post it on Instagram, right?
But what is Instagrammable? This is actually a pretty new word in the dictionary.
It's in the dictionary?
It is. It's a real word now.
It's an official word now. I love the kinds of words that make it into the dictionary. Yeah, so if something is Instagrammable, it means it's something that will probably be good or look good after you post it on Instagram. It's Instagrammable, but really, I think it could apply to a lot of different social media platforms as well.
You're right. It doesn't mean that these type of places or these type of photos just go on Instagram. It's really talking about an aesthetic. An aesthetic is the way something feels, the atmosphere, the way it looks. So it just means that these type of cafes are Instagrammable.
Well, Anne-Marie, is it true that when you go to an Instagrammable cafe or a restaurant, or tell me about yourself. When you go eat somewhere, do you always pull out your phone and take a picture of the food first? Or do you just enjoy your meal and then maybe take a picture of your friends later outside the restaurant?
It depends on how good the food looks. If the food looks really, really good,
okay,
then my phone eats first. If your phone eats first, it means that before you eat the food, your phone eats. It takes a photo of your food. I think this is a really fun phrase. I actually just heard about this phrase recently. You could say that you feed your phone first or your phone eats first. And it also depends on who I'm with. Because some people, I can tell it really annoys them if I'm going to take a lot of photos of my food.
Because they probably are there to enjoy your company and have a good conversation with you.
So if I know they're that type of friend, I won't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the record, I'm like in between.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tolerate it, but then I'll hope that we can have a good conversation. Because here's the thing, you know, when you go out with somebody, you don't want to be thinking, oh, are they always thinking about something else or the next thing they have to do, which could include taking pictures of food.
To post it.
To post it. Or in one case, this is slightly related, I went to lunch with some friends and all of a sudden they had to get up and go outside to Zhuabao. They had to go catch some Pokemon. Thankfully, it wasn't a very serious conversation, but I was imagining if I was having a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody and all of a sudden they wanted to get up and go Zhuabao, like, I don't know, I could be pretty offended.
So those are two instances where maybe something that you feel like is innocent. For example, I think sometimes taking pictures of my food is totally innocent, or maybe your friends thought that catching Pokemon was totally okay. It could actually really offend other people. So this is a really good example of how social media has changed our society. Now, there are two main reasons that I thought of that have really just affected society as a whole, and these are more negative things that society has been changed because of. The first one is, I kind of lumped it together, false closeness and reduced boundaries.
False closeness. So the idea that you might feel really close to somebody who is on the other side of social media. So, you know, somebody on the other side of the world, or maybe somebody you haven't seen in a long time, 好久不见的朋友, and then you feel like, okay, because you're commenting on each other's posts, there's a sense of closeness.
Yeah.
这是一种假亲密嘛? It's like false, it's not that close.
For example, if you're posting pictures of yourself on Facebook or on Instagram or even videos on YouTube, if you're watching that kind of content, you've maybe never even actually met that person, but because they're talking to you or because you're looking at photos of their family, they might see that, they might feel that they actually know you, and that is partially true. But sometimes because of that, what happens is that there are reduced boundaries.
Yeah, so go into that a little bit more, reduced boundaries, because you're not with the other person anyway, so there's that boundary.
So a lot of times there's a boundary between people that we know really well and people who are acquaintances, right? People who are our close friends, we share maybe more intimate things with, things that are going on in our lives, things about our family, or maybe even we will share with them like problems that we have or something like that. But when you're posting things about your life online, people who don't actually know you very well might feel like they could give you advice or comments about your lifestyle, even though it's actually none of their business.
I see. That's what you mean by reduced boundaries.
Yeah.
Something else that could be a negative effect of social media is maybe the effects of cancel culture in general.
That's been a hot topic recently.
Right, cancel culture, you could directly translate it, 取消文化. And you know what, if you're going to get a lot of different definitions for this, but depending on the person that you ask, what does cancel culture mean? But for you, what do you think that cancel culture implies?
Well, cancel culture is usually the idea that somebody has done something that has offended others. Now, it might be truly offensive or just something that is perceived to be offensive. And because of that, society, especially online society, believes that that person should have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are minor, like, oh, we don't really want to listen to what they have to say anymore, they're not relevant. But sometimes those consequences are really quite big, such as, oh, they need to be fired from their job or removed from a position.
Now, cancel culture, I believe it kind of started with the idea of celebrities and maybe 有一些明星他们做一些事情真的让人家不爽. So we kind of found out a way to cancel them in some way or to voice our opinions in a public way so maybe they would change their behavior. And I think that's a little more okay, right? Because we want to hold them accountable.
That's right.
But the fact is, cancel culture is now affecting a lot of other people who aren't making nearly as much money as celebrities. They're not as famous as celebrities. They can't bounce back in society, in other words. And so it can really negatively affect people's lives. The way I was talking about it with a friend just recently was, it's like we used to have relationships, and no matter what, we would prioritize the relationship, right? And even if we had disagreements, we could still find a way to value the relationship and let the other person know that we value the relationship. But now with cancel culture, it's kind of the opposite. It's like, you know, because
your actions are more important.
Well, also it's the disagreement, the beliefs that you have seem to be more important than the relationship.
I see.
Even though you may have incorrect beliefs or not very complete, well-rounded beliefs, or maybe you have a misunderstanding about something, or maybe the other person does. And so that kind of thing, you hold on to your belief and it becomes more important to you than the relationship, and taking a stand on that belief and making the other person feel kind of bad about it is more important, I think, in today's cancel culture.
So what do you guys think? Do you think cancel culture is a good thing or a bad thing? Are there any instances where you feel, yes, we should definitely cancel a person? Or do you think people should be given second chances no matter what they have done? Let us know down in the comments.
That's right. Another question we had is, what rules on social media can help us maintain respect for other people? 我们用社群媒体的时候，有没有什么规则我们一定要去遵守？让我们可以有彼此的这种尊重。So, are there any rules that come to mind for you? Because I'm sure it's different for everybody. I'm sure you've thought about this before as well, especially when you are looking at a video on YouTube and then you see some pretty negative comments below. Or any other kind of social media platform as well, and the way that people interact with each other, I think we should have some basic rules.
That's right, and we did come up with a short list of rules. Now, this isn't all of the rules, but these are some that I thought and Gabe thought were pretty important. The first one doesn't have to do so much with social media as it does with texting your friends.
Okay.
I really, really hate it. This is a pet peeve when people leave me on red. 已读不回.
Oh, 已读不回. So
I hate that.
Yeah. So, but there's different reasons for that.
There are.
Right? Like maybe they don't have an answer for you right away. Do you think that they should say, I don't know right now, let me get back to you?
Definitely.
Okay. You prefer any kind of answer, any response?
At least I know that they read my message and are taking it seriously.
Even a little emoji, right?
Sure, thumbs up, or I got it, or whatever.
With the two hearts in the eyes?
Yeah, oh sure.
Yeah.
That one's cute.
Okay, so, well, what do you think about that rule, friends? Maybe that bugs you as well, or maybe it's not as big of a deal. But another rule that we think is pretty good is don't say something online if you wouldn't say it in person.
Speaking of boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're having a conversation with somebody online, and now you can imagine having a conversation with them in person. You could see their face, you could see their reactions, they can see you. If you can imagine you saying what you're going to say with that person in person, then it's okay to say online in writing. But if you can't imagine saying it to that person's face, then maybe you should think about not saying it or being really careful with how you write it.
I would take it a step further. I would say If you can't imagine saying it to that person and immediately receiving their response, then you definitely shouldn't post it.
I think we should also be mindful about tone, right? Because this is something that, you know, people were talking about even as early as email communication, or maybe even as early as when people were writing letters back and forth to each other. Tone of voice is lost. You know, you don't have that luxury of communicating your tone when you're just writing something out. And so you have to keep that in mind as well, that something might be lost in translation.
You might be taken a different way than you intended it, not because you had a bad intention, but because you're writing things that are down on paper or on a screen. People don't know what you originally meant. Okay, here's another one. This one's more important for what you post. This is give credit where credit is due. Now, this can be applied to social media, but it can also be applied to places like school and work. The idea is that if somebody else wrote something, if somebody else made a video, if someone else took a photo, you need to make sure you say that that piece of work is from somebody else. Don't pretend like it's your own.
Yeah, in general, in the academic world, this is called plagiarizing, right? It's a it's a huge no-no, starting as early as a junior high student, as early as your first essay, where you have to research what somebody else has written, right? You want to give credit where credit is due. Another rule that we think is not bad is don't post photos of someone without their permission.
If they know that you're taking photos and that they're going to end up on social media later, that's fine. But if you take pictures of someone secretly, or take pictures especially of their kids.
Like the paparazzi.
Yeah.
They're always out, you know, go tight, right? Taking
Make
pictures
sure
of
that you're
celebrities.
not posting things that people don't know that you're posting.
Yeah. And another one is to share responsibly. So this idea is that you want to make sure that you check your facts before you share something.
That's right. Sometimes people will create fake news stories just to create a problem or to trick people.
Or we say to get a rise out of people,
That's
right?
right.
Because it's sensational, 有噱头, right? And so it can really get a interesting reaction out of people. Often those kinds of news stories also go viral. They create a lot of discussion, and people know that, and that's why they post things. But the fact is, sometimes they don't check all of their facts before posting.
And we have a responsibility to make sure that if we're going to share something, we make sure that it is real and true, so that we're not causing other people to have a problem with it.
So I think in general, maybe one good overarching rule to have is to think before you post, right? No matter what you're doing. And that goes for conversations with people as well. You know, think before you speak, think before you post online.
All right, well, as we are running out of time here for today's live stream, we want to tell you about a very special event we have coming up in a few weeks, I believe.
That's right. Ed Tech. There's an education technology exhibition event over at the World Trade Center here in Taipei, Taipei世贸一馆, okay? And this is going on from November 9th through 12th from 10 a.m. to 6 in the evening.
Now, there's a lot of things that are going to be going on there. There's going to be workshops put on for teachers there. We are going to be doing some workshops ourselves. That is the Studio Classroom team will be. And we're also going to have a booth there. And at that booth, you can check out a lot of our different digital products.
That's right. So if you're interested, go and check out EdTech this year. There will be a Studio Classroom booth there. Well, I believe that's all the time we have for today.
Yep, it sure is. If you're not following us already on sc.host, you can go ahead and give that a follow. We post English tips on there several times a week.
And friends, you know, we don't have any comments yet so far today, and that's fine. If you're watching this later after our live stream, don't be afraid to comment. Just because our topic is don't be rude online, 不要想太多. Don't think that what you might have to say is too rude. It's okay to share like constructive criticism, for example.
And we definitely go back and read your comments later after the live stream, and we'd love to hear from you.
That's right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your week.
Yay!